Good morning, everyone. It's Hump Day, Wednesday morning. We have a front moving through the central U.S. Still a lot of rain in South Florida. You can see on the visible satellite loop here both of those features, and some high jet stream cirrus blowing across the top of this entire thing here across Texas. So we still have a pretty active pattern of severe weather here to talk about over the next several days, at least through Saturday, with some heavy rain possibilities and also some severe weather clustering. So today's active weather is definitely along this frontal boundary here as it stretches from Michigan down to southern Missouri. And there'll be some active thunderstorms developing in the eastern portion of Missouri today. You can kind of see on the HRRR simulated radar here. Also, a good cluster of thunderstorms developing in Texas. And this Florida system just gradually starts to lift, but it's still trailing thunderstorms down into that state. So that is an interesting development for those folks. Heavy rain, kind of a tropical feel to that, but it is not a tropical system, although they're thinking that this might turn into something here, but it's a very low probability. Let's take a look at the severe thunderstorm outlooks for today. So we're back to West Texas again, which we've probably over the last 2 weeks, that has been the epicenter of severe weather more times than not. By looking at the actual outlooks. And then we have this front is very obvious here with its 1 out of 5 trailing severe weather possibility here. I don't see any real tornado threats with this. And neither does the SPC. When they issued with their tornado outlook for today, it's back to that same West Texas and eastern and central New Mexico, almost getting into Santa Fe and Albuquerque. But the Nadocast agrees with that. Oops, I didn't put that in the back. Anyway, so the Nadocast definitely puts the machine learning model back into central New Mexico, and it does put a 2% chance of tornadoes along that line from, let's say, around the Detroit area down to around Champaign-Urbana, Illinois. But again, pretty low threats here. Not impossible, but on the low side. SIPS is doing the analog comparison from this pattern to previous patterns that looked like it in the past, and it puts a slightly different portion of West Texas under the threat and is pretty much in definite agreement with SPC's outlook today with a 15% category there. CSU has his machine learning model, and it does put that tornado threat in New Mexico. Nothing along the front. All the hail and high wind threats are pretty much scattered and pretty weak. And then we're going to go ahead to Thursday, a resurgence of severe weather possibility, a 2 out of 5 risk out through portions of the high plains, West Texas, portions of Kansas. This outlook area looks very much like it did the other day. The only difference is this elongated area of hail and high wind risk, I think, primarily from southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, all the way up to New England. Pretty long stretch and fetch there. I actually zoomed in on this area for you so you could see where the level 1 and 2 area is. This looks very much like and is a dry line type of feature and a warm front type of feature, but all these systems are pretty weak. That's why it is, but there's something about West Texas that can develop tornadoes. So that's why this tornado risk for Thursday is up at 5% out there. It's just a unique gift, if you will, of the high plains where when the winds start backing more out of the southeast at night, it tends to favor tornado development. It's a part of the world which is used to seeing it, actually. So they have a 5% risk from, let's say, Dodge right down the pipe there in West Texas from Amarillo to Lubbock, with a 2% extending almost to Tulsa, getting into Oklahoma City. That's Thursday, tomorrow. If you look at SIP's outlook, they put the severe weather risk, any severe weather is what they're talking about here with the probability, a little bit more to the south, and actually are highlighting the New England portion of that a little bit more. So we'll see what happens up there in New York, parts of New England, and also Pennsylvania. And the CSU outlook, again, does emphasize the tornado threat out through the high plains and pretty much puts all of its money for hail and even high winds out in that part of the outlook area. So for Friday, this looks a lot like yesterday's forecast. It stretches out here, frontal boundary pretty obvious up here, a lot of unstable air. So this also, not only is it a severe weather threat, but it's also a training rain and thunderstorm threat. So the heavy rains will probably be going on in clusters all through this area and again on areas north of it. It's interesting that if I look at the SIPS model, it does put a bullseye, a pretty significant one for any type of severe weather, just north of, kind of north of both the Tulsa and the Oklahoma City area. I find that very interesting for Friday, so we'll see how that develops. And then CSU has a pretty long corridor of 2% tornado risk that runs through southern Missouri, northern Arkansas, all the way up the Ohio River Valley, and maybe through the high plains too, but does reserve the hail and wind, the hail threat down in Texas, but the wind threat. So this tells me that there are either going to be some embedded squall lines in there, or there might be some individual storms that produce some severe weather threats. But just the way that severe weather threat is shaped tells me that it's a training type of event. So the thunderstorms will keep raking over the same areas again and again and again. That's why the heavy rain is in the forecast for those areas as well. And then we finally go into Saturday. It's really the same pattern, only it just sinks south a little bit more. So here's Saturday's outlook from Amarillo to Little Rock, including maybe Dallas. The northern two-thirds of both Mississippi and Alabama. Atlanta is included, all the way to Columbia. Again, a long fetch of severe weather possibility. CSU agrees with that almost entirely. So here's the forecast I just showed you, and then here is what they're coming up with, very much the same. Then on Sunday, nothing from the SPC. West Texas, maybe parts of South Carolina on Sunday, slightly higher risk. It kind of washes out on Monday. You can see the effects of a jet stream that is favoring more stable, less humid air up through the northern plains, and that is even more pronounced on Tuesday's forecast when the whole thing is obviously being driven by that very same pattern. So the severe weather threat shifts to the west, to the east coast rather. Here's the supercell composite outlook. This summarizes the June 4th today through the 10th, so the next 7 days, which is what we just looked at. So they're definitely putting their money on the outlooks being most prevalent there in Texas and Oklahoma, and you can see the stretching effects of that front perhaps. And then on the 11th through the 17th, this would be week 2. We definitely see it go from Kansas northward to Montana, parts of the Dakotas, still parts of Colorado and Texas. That's favoring climatology, so the severe weather usually in June starts shifting more to the north, and it's still pronounced the third week of June, or third week of this forecast, which is essentially the third week of June. We still see severe weather outlooks. So this is a supercell composite. Doesn't mean that a supercell will produce severe weather. That's the idea. So a supercell is a thunderstorm that's held together by good shear jet stream winds, overall bulk shear, not the low-level stuff that helps tornadoes, and then just instabilities. That's what a supercell needs and is forming in that type of condition. And then it's implied that it could do all the severe weather parameters, either large hail or damaging winds or possibly a tornado. That's our outlook for today. We'll bring you another one tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the Morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day 1 because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.